Hey boys and girls, welcome to another video. So in this one we are going to be putting off the old gearbox and mounting up a new clutch and flywheel setup onto the new engine ready to install. So first things first, new engine, got to drag that out, get it over here where we can work on it, and then over here obviously our lovely tidy engine bay. So we've got to drag this old lump out, pull this box off and get the new stuff set up on the new engine along with the box. So we'll get you set up, drag that over and show you how to pull it off and set up the new clutch and flywheel correctly. To do is pull this box off this old engine. So what we've got is a selection of bolts and bits and pieces we need to address. If the car is still complete and this is still in the car, it's a bit more tricky, so it's a bit easier to see with the engine out of the car. So first you've got these two bolts at the top. They are E14s, quite straightforward, but they're hard to see, so you need to get them with some long extension bars. And then the two starter bolts, they are E12. So all of these can be got up with the engine and box in the car, but just access is tricky. So what I would do first is drop the gearbox mount down. You've got two 30mm bolts on either side of this mount. That will give you a bit more clearance. And then you'd address the prop. So it's got 6 bolts on it. I think they're 18mm from memory. What you would do is just undo 3 of them. Once they're undone, pull the bolts out, slide the prop back, and then it should drop down out your way. You could pull the prop from the rear half to get it right out the way. It's up to you, but either you could leave it there or move it, whatever you want to do. Then you would be, your next thing to touch would be the linkage if you wanted to. This isn't critical, you can leave it on the car. It's not going to massively give you loads more room to work, but it you know, anything is a help when you're laying under the car. So you've got a clip on this lower bush, and then there should be a clip here. This car's got a nut and bolt, someone's replaced it. But, you know, you don't have to take that off. It's not overly critical, but it might give you a bit more access, a bit more room. So, yeah, if you want to pull it off, you can do. And then all you'd be left with is the box. Generally when you do these on the car, you'd probably pull off the exhaust downpipe and midsection bit, just because it gives you much better access. These bolts here, they love to snap or break the block, because the block is alloy, sorry. And obviously these are steel bolts, so they corrode and then they break. So we might encounter that these might break in a minute, but we won't know until we get in there. But if that does happen, don't panic. There's plenty of bolts holding the gearbox on, so you know, if one does break, it's not the end of the world. So yeah, don't stress over that too much. But yeah, so we'll get them pulled off. There's a selection of different sizes. These two bigger ones, the ones in the starter. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 down there, and then on this side there should be 1 here which is missing, which is interesting. And then this is a little 10mm here, and this actually comes in from this side, and all this does is it holds on this plate. But yeah, I assume someone's had this box off. I'm pretty confident in that because it's missing 2 bolts already. So in fact, if you look down there, you can actually see where this bolt should be. The block is actually broken, because there should be a bolt in here, so the block's already split on this side. The first thing you want to do is pull the starter motor off, so get these 2 bolts out and get that free of the box. Also don't forget to disconnect your battery when you're doing this if it's on the car, because obviously you're going to be touching the starter motor. So whip your earth cable off the battery and then pull these 2 off here. Once you've undone those 2 bolts, there's a dowel that lives in here, so this can be quite tricky to get off, and obviously when it's in the car, access is quite limited because your inlet manifold's here. But yeah, you want to get this starter motor free. last but not least, there is an E10 down on the side here. Right, so next step should just be able to pull this box off, see how that goes. Sometimes it can be really tricky, and what I've seen happen is this, as you can tell, there's a bit of rust on there, that can seize into the pilot bearing in the back of the crank. If that happens, it can be a nightmare, and then what you want to do is get a pry bar either side of the engine and just sort of lever it out. Something like that. Doesn't happen often, but yeah, if it will not remove, it should come off easily. If it doesn't, get yourself a pair of them and a nice strong mate to help you. Stick one either side and just lever it out. So that's the old box off. Well, we're going to reuse that. Next step is to pull the flywheel off. So to pull this off, you've got a selection of E11 bolts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a lightweight flywheel set up on it. So next step to get that off, you basically buzz these bolts off. Definitely helps if you've got an impact gun for this. If you're trying to do it without, you'd need to lock the flywheel somehow, so put a screwdriver through one of these holes and sort of wedge it. But yeah, definitely get yourself an impact gun of some sort. It makes all this stuff way easier. Like that. Yeah, that's stamped BMW, so that's original. So you've got this is a pilot bearing. Bring you right in there. You might have seen people using bits of bread. Basically, to get that out, the best method is get some bread, smash it in there, and it will come out. This one is really noisy, so definitely would want replacement. But anyway, we're not using this engine, so it's not the end of the world. Also looks like possibly the crank seal has been leaking a little bit because there's a bit of residual oil down here, so that's something I'd want to change. There's the new engine. All I've done so far, this came out of a Z3, pretty low mileage Z3, so some bits are a little bit different, namely the engine loom, because the Z3 fuse box is on the other side, or the ECU. So what I've done is I've taken the loom from the E36 engine, the old one, and put it onto this engine, along with some other bits such as the alternator, because this has these slightly different electrical connections on it. So I've kept the alternator off the old engine, kept the loom off the old engine, and obviously the ECU is going to be original to the car. Otherwise it's all Z3 stuff, Z3 arms, Z3 power steering pump, but it all fits on there fine. This is the old dual mass, which is knackered. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull that off and put a nice single mass on there. These are notoriously very heavy from the factory, and it sort of really dampens down the engine. So in my opinion, the best mod that you can do without spending pounds and pounds is to fit one of these TTV flywheels. But yeah, super light. I think the stock dual mass is around 12 kilograms off the top of my head, and then one of these, I mean there's various weights available, but this particular one is a 5 kilogram variant, so super light, and it totally changes the character of the car, and probably the best bang for buck mod you can do on a E36. If I can get the thing out. This particular one isn't actually going to go onto the coupe, and you run a stock clutch with it.
So super nice bit of kit. I mean, you can see how light it is. I can pick it up with no drama. At the moment, these are 360 quid with delivery, and they're pretty much held in stock. So if you want to get in touch, I can hook you up with one of them. I'll put a link in the description as well so you can see them. That's the nice new one for the race car. For the coupe, we've got an old one that we're going to make use of. Doesn't look quite as pretty, but it's the exact same flywheel. Still a TTV, bit of kit. All in, you could put this setup on the car for about 500 quid, and it will totally change how a stock M50 or M52 drives. Obviously, it doesn't add any power, but it really wakes the car up. It becomes a lot more responsive, stops the revs hanging as you're sort of driving, changing gear, stuff like that. So it really changes the character of the car. Right, that's the flywheel installed. The pilot bearing's fine, no play in that, no noise, so that's good to use. So we're not replacing that. That's the bit that lives in the crank. If you do an auto to manual swap, this is the piece that you need to install. That sits on the input shaft and the gearbox, so make sure the input shaft doesn't do that. Keep it nice and central. Single mass flywheel, obviously I've just put a grease there, nice. As we've gone from a dual mass to a single mass, you need to use different bolts. So the stock dual mass bolts are these mega long ones. The single mass ones are these. You see the difference in size. You've got two options here, or three options. Either go and buy new shorter bolts that are about this length. I'll try and put some dimensions in the description for you. You can either cut down the stock bolt, which is pretty jank, but if you're on a budget then it will do. I've done it before, but yeah, less than ideal. Go and buy new bolts. These are 12.9 tensile bolts, the OEM ones, so get something as close to that ideally. So you can either use that bolt, cut it down. You can either go and buy new bolts, or what I like to do, and probably the cheapest and easiest way if you've got access to parts, is to go and find an automatic engine, whether it be a V8, whether it be straight six, and take the flywheel bolts off of that, because they run a much shorter bolt, because the flywheel flex plate, whatever it's called, I don't know, on the auto is way thinner, and obviously that matches then a single mass. So these are off a V8 engine. Installed them. I don't know what the torque figure is off the top of my head, but I tend to always just ugga-dugga the hell out of them on the gun, just because. Make sure you put some thread locker on them. You obviously do not want those coming undone. And then that's good to go. So next step, I've just cleaned the face. Obviously this is quite an old flywheel, so it's not perfect, but this car's not going to be a race car or anything too hardcore, so that'll be fine once the clutch disc bed's into that. I did have this remachined just to tidy up the surface. A friend of mine done that a little while ago. There's not really any imperfections in it, it's just a bit of surface rust that's sat on there because it's been in storage. So next up, we are going to put in clutch disc. This is a stock 2.8 clutch that's going on this, 240mm diameter. Notice whenever you do these, they are sided. They will say on them whatever the German word is for gearbox side, and then gearbox side. So obviously gearbox side faces out, so that side goes in, that will sit on there. And then lastly, your pressure plate gets bolted down. Now when you bolt these up, you don't need one of these, but it will definitely help. So this centralizes the pressure plate until you get a chance to bolt the pressure plate down. If you don't have one of them, you don't want to buy one, you can just use a socket, an extension bar, something like that. I've done it before, but you can buy these for like a tenner, super cheap. I've done enough of them to warrant just having a tool, and you haven't got to think about it. these can wear. The factory one is made out of nylon. Powerflex do a stainless one which you can upgrade to, but even cheaper than that you can use an E31 8 series. They use a stainless steel one from the factory, so they tend to last longer than these nylon ones. This one's actually in reasonable condition, so I'm just going to leave it. The box has only done about 150k, so that's fine. I've just given it a bit of a clean up. I haven't gone too crazy, just got rid of the worst of the grease that was sat in there. So this is all good. That sort of sits in there like so, and that's that. I'm not going to be able to put the box back on today, unfortunately, because the release bearing that I've got, I don't know how well you'll be able to hear it, but yeah, the bearings in it are pretty shot, so I'm going to replace that just because I'm in here, so why wouldn't you? So I'm getting another one of those. Obviously the new one we'll just install like so. Once you're at that stage, the box is then ready to go back on. The only thing you've got to add is the this plate. So make sure you stick this on first. It lives that way up. It's got the cutout for the starter motor hole, so that would live on there. Obviously that needs manipulating into place, and then it's bolted with a 10mm through here, down on the side of the block. And then at that point, chuck the box back on. Obviously got the box back in there, torque them up. Next video we're going to have a look at, before we put the box back in, what we can do to sort out the shifter linkage on these cars. They're notorious for being sloppy as hell. This one, if you look, you can see there's play in all sorts. You could play in this, you could play in this, and then normally the worst culprit is this one where it goes into the chassis. So I've got some bits on order, so what we'll do is we'll show you how to freshen that up. So we're going to replace this with a Powerflex bush, this with a Powerflex bush, that one goes on the chassis, this with a replacement jobby from BMW, and this Guibo, I have got one of those already, so that can be swapped over. But yeah, we'll get that in the next video and show you that. So yep, cheers for watching, and yeah, hopefully next one we'll get up in the next week or so and get the box put back on. So yeah, fingers crossed. Cheers for watching, guys.